Okay, good morning, good evening to all my colleagues here in Binghamton, New York, and India. We're very delighted to have you join us for the 8th webinar as part of the joint webinar series between Binghamton University and Vellore Institute of Technology, VIT. As you know, this webinar series is jointly organized between our institutions, and so far we have completed 7 excellent seminars, and we are delighted that today we will have the 8th one. This morning or this evening, depending on where you are, we are delighted to have Professor George Jacob, who is an assistant professor from the Center for Nanotechnology Research at VIT. Professor Jacob has completed his master's in electronic science and nanotechnology from Satyabama University in Chennai, India, and VIT University, Vellore, India from 2006 and to 2008. Currently, he's doing his PhD in graphene plasmonics as a faculty of nanotechnology master's course and an active researcher in the center. He has more than 10 years of experience in scanning probe microscopy and its advanced applications. Professor George is an expert in computational analysis of 2D graphene in Cosmol multiphysics and numerical FDTD. He has more than 10 journal publications and 6 conference publications, and he's a university consultancy coordinator for nanomaterial characterization for academic and industrial projects. So we are very delighted this evening, to have Professor George join us to talk to us about his research related to graphene. So Professor George, thank you very much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you right now.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed, for the kind words. Good evening to all from India and good morning to all from US. Welcome you for a section on graphene and opportunity for flexible optoelectronics. The new era of physical science is called photonics, which deals the generation of light and detection and manipulations through emission, transmission, modulations, switching, and sensing. And this techniques actually is trying to find a solution for the errors associated with the electronics. So that means it can provide a high-speed operation devices. But the main drawback of this techniques is actually the dimension of the devices are
George, sorry. Yeah.
Some issues. Okay. So the photonics concepts actually deals the high-speed devices, but the major drawback of this photonics device is its dimensionality. So due to its a bulky nature, it's very difficult to integrate with the integrated circuits. If you are going to understand the interaction of light with a matter, when the electromagnetic radiation is going to interact with a material, there are different levels or different phenomena can happen. Sometimes it can absorb the energy, that means material can absorb the energy. Sometimes it will make some kind of non-radiative recombinations, and sometimes it can be scattered. It's maybe on the substrate or maybe some impurities which is there on the substrate. Sometimes this can be transmitted through the material. Maybe there is a chance of excite the charge particles from its one energy level or lower energy level to a higher energy level. And at the time of relaxation of this excited energy levels, there is a chance of produce some kind of emission. Apart that, if you are able to shine a electromagnetic energies to a conductive material, especially nano dimensional conductive materials, the input frequencies match with the excitation frequency range of the charge carriers, then it can excite to a higher energy level. If it's a continuous process, this excitement will produce a oscillation to a charge carriers, and that will make a plasmonics effects. Why is called plasmonics? Because when the charge carriers start oscillating, as per the Maxwell's theory, any charge particles start oscillating, it can produce electromagnetic radiation. So when this plasmonics effect is going to happen, the net effect of energy which is produced on the material is actually more than the input energy. So in that point of view, in plasmonics, concepts actually confine the optical energy in a small dimension because it's going to absorb the entire energy to the material, and due to that the energy, the light or the electromagnetic radiation actually is going to confine to a small regions, and since it is confined to a small region, the net effect of energy will be a diffraction free energy, and this effect is actually called that this oscillation actually is derived from the plasmon effects. So since it's actually a diffraction free as well as it's a very confined in nano dimensions, the operation of these signals can be in the range of gigahertz to a terahertz. That means that should be better than photonics and better than electronics. So that point of view, the plasmonics can merge the field of electronics and photonics and can make a better or advanced device in the future. So it's a future technology, and it find a solution for the compatibility problem with respect to that means photonics device with respect to electronic circuits. So plasmonics actually is based on a plasmon effects. So since it's actually a confined energy, it can appear only at the surface, or the condition for generate the plasmons are whenever actually the two materials will change its actually dielectric property. That means one materials require a negative dielectric property, or another material or the other materials require a positive dielectric property. If that condition is satisfied, and if you are going to shine a electromagnetic radiations to the material, that will excite the free electrons, and that coherent oscillation of the free electrons will generate the plasmons, and due to that the net effect of energy will be greater than, or it's actually higher than the input excitation source. So if you are going to look at the main features of the surface plasmons, the wavelength of surface plasmon should be smaller or shorter than the excitation or input energy source. And since it's actually a shorter wavelength, it can enhance, or it's kind of a enhanced evanescence source. And since it's an evanescent source, that means a high frequency component, definitely it will work only at the surface of the material. So that means it's bound to a surface. Since it's bound to a surface, it can propagate only through the surface. That means it's propagating along the surface. So if you are going to search for what are the materials can be produced plasmonics, so far actually four category of materials can be produced surface plasmons. One is pure metals like silver, gold, copper, aluminum, and there are some kind of metallic alloys like cadmium, zinc, potassium, gold, or maybe some kind of a compound semiconductor material like heavily doped gallium arsenide or aluminum zinc oxide, gallium zinc oxide. And the fourth category or fourth material or fourth group is actually graphene material. So compared to this all plasmonics materials, the first three categories actually a solid material, but in a graphene, it's a solid, it's a strong as well as a flexible material. So that point of view, the study of plasmonics on graphene will lead to, or will help us to work towards the flexible plasmonics device in the future. So if you are going to look at the basic property of the graphene, you know, graphene actually a winning material for last 2 decades. It's a 2D material, first discovered naturally existing 2D materials, and it's having kind of a intrinsic conductive. That means intrinsic graphene actually looks like a pure conductive material. That means there is no band gap. We can open the band gap by doing a chemical doping or applying some external bias, or maybe we can modify the shape of this graphene. Optically, actually is highly transparent. Mechanically is highly strong material, and electronically is a highly conductive materials. So why we are actually looking for graphene as a plasmonics materials? As a conclusion, I can tell that graphene enables strong confinement, that means a strong localization of the electromagnetic energy at a small scale. It excites the surface plasma, that means surface plasmons are excited on the graphene in a high frequency range like terahertz or near infrared regions. And this frequency of excitement actually is, can be tuned or can be varied with respect to the level of doping which is doing on the graphene. So with these introductions, I'm going to discuss about the effect of plasmonics in graphene. For understand the plasmonics effects in graphene, we performed a COMSOL multiplex finite element analysis. The numerical analysis of this graphene plasmonics showing the conductivity of the graphenes are due to the transition of charge gradients within the bands and in between the bands. So these transitions can be mathematically derived through this mathematical equations. Actually, this consists of the intra-band transition and the interband transitions of the charge gradients. And from this, the complex conductivity, we can find out the permittivity of the graphene using this Kubo formula. Using this permittivity, we defined the graphene on a COMSOL's materials, and we studied the graphene plasmonics properties. Using this Drude mathematical equations, we are extract the conductivity of the graphene on a different input frequency. So it's indicate that graphene conductivity is a complex part, is contain a real and imaginary parts. So the intraband and interband actually is giving a huge contribution on the effective conductivity of the graphene, that is optical conductivity of the graphene. At the lower range of terahertz frequencies, there are more chance of getting intraband transition, and in the higher range of terahertz frequencies, there is a more excitement, or there is a more chance of interband transitions, and that will contribute the major portion of the conductivity, that is optical conductivity of the graphene. So when you are going to excite the graphene with a transmits magnetic polarized input source or electromagnetic source, so the imaginary part of conductivity will be positive when we are going to excite with a TM mode of a input source, and that will support the plasmons. But whenever your imaginary part of conductivity is negative, we can apply with a TE mode and we can support plasmonics. That means in the case of plasmonics, it's actually exceptional with respect to other material, and TM mode as well as TE mode can support plasmonics effects. From that complex conductivity, we derive the relative permittivity using the Kubo formula, and we can see that the relative permittivity of the graphene actually is also depends upon the change in chemical potential. As chemical potential is actually increasing, there will be a blue shift in the permittivity of the graphene. The permittivity versus chemical potential plot of graphene at a frequency, input frequency of 200 terahertz, which indicates, and one particular chemical potentials of 0.53 electron volt, we can find out the electromagnetic, that means relative permittivity is become zero value. That means below the 0.53 electron volt, this imaginary part of permittivity as well as real part of permittivities become positive in value. At that time, the material, that means graphene, is going to act as a dielectrics, and above the 0.53 electron volt of chemical potentials, the real and imaginary part of permittivities become negative, and that actually the minimum condition for support the plasmonics. That means that time the graphene is going to act as a metallic. That means the graphene abundantly support the plasmonics behavior. So if you are going to, if you want to understand the range of plasmon excitations frequency in the graphene, we already know that actually the chemical potential is actually alter the plasmonics range. So in these plots, we notice that the relative permittivity of the graphenes actually varied from 0.2 electron volt of chemical potential to 0.8 electron volt of chemical potentials. The plasmon excitation frequencies are studies based on a conditions like the real part of permittivity should be always lesser than 0, and the modulus of real part should be always greater than the modulus of imaginary part. So that point of view, we've analyzed this plot for a different chemical potentials, and we notice that for a 0.2 electron volt of chemical potentials, the lowest range of frequency should be greater than 0.79 terahertz, and the highest frequency range will be lesser than 80 terahertz. If you are going to increase the chemical potential from 0.2 to 0.8 electron volt, so the range of frequency will be varied like 0.8 to 80 in the case of 0.2 electron volt, but in the case of 0.8 electron volt of chemical potentials, it's varying from 0.2 terahertz to 300 terahertz or less than 300 terahertz. If you are going to study the thickness of the graphene layer, we can see that if the from a single layer of graphene to a multi-layer of graphene, there will be a redshift in the permittivity. That means the number of layers are increased. That makes graphene, that means number of layers of graphenes are increasing, makes the material become pure dielectric properties. So due to that, the permittivity, that means plasmonic effects can be make a redshift in permittivity. So the next properties we analyze actually dispersion relations. So the dispersion relations provides the understanding of the interaction between light and a metallic surface. Here the frequency versus the wave vector of plasmons actually is studied here. As a chemical potentials increase from 0.2 electron volt to 0.8 electron volt, the dispersion relations actually shifted from a lower frequencies to a higher frequency. As chemical potential is increasing, the K values are achieving a high, that means the wave vector is achieving a high K values, and at the lower frequencies, the plasmons dispersion relation is actually lies with a light dispersion relations. Once at a particular frequency, the dispersion relation of the graphenes actually is going to achieve a non-linear relationships. That means graphenes start supporting plasmonics effects. At a higher frequency, this wave vector becomes saturated. So that means the plasmons become, that means plasmonics effects become localized in the graphene. After studying a freestanding graphene, for the device point of view, we analyze this dispersion relation on different dielectrics. We varied the dielectric, that means we sandwich the graphene in between air, PMMA, and SiO2. That means we are just assumes like say freestanding and a polymer material and a commonly used semiconductor for device fabrications. So we noticed that as the increase in chemical potentials of the graphene, increase the SPP excitation frequency, and increase the dielectric constants, reduce the XPD excitation frequency. That means if we are going to increase the dielectric properties from 1 to 2, then the dispersion relations are actually effectively varied. Another important property of the plasmons are a propagation length. That means the distance at which the plasmons can be traveled in the horizontal surface. Okay. So we are normally not monitor this propagation length by monitoring the 1 by E of the initial value which is generated or the point at which the plasmons are generated. So here also we can see that as the chemical potential is increased from 0.2 to 0.8 electron volt, the propagation lengths are actually altered, and at lower frequencies, at higher chemical potentials, we are achieving a higher propagation length. And if the frequencies are increasing, the penetration depth, the propagation length is actually decreasing. So higher doping will increase the range of plasmon frequency, and propagation length will vary high at a low frequency, and good confinement we can find it at a high frequency. That means where propagation length is small means the plasmons are actually localized on a surface itself. It will not be propagated through the surface, and it will be localized in a small point. So that means it's giving a good confinement at the high frequency. So this propagation length studies also is performed on a different dielectrics, and we notice that same effects with respect to a freestanding graphene, but as the dielectric materials are increased from refractive index value of 1 to refractive index value of 2, and there is a reduction in the propagation length on a one particular input frequency on a one particular chemical potentials. And we are going to see that at higher frequencies, the surface plasmons become again confined on a localized surface plasmons. The third important property if I have to understand about any plasmonics material, actually the skin depth. That means the amount, the penetration of the plasmonics energy through the dielectrics. That means vertical to the surface. So in the case of graphene, as the chemical potential is increasing from 0.2 electron volt to 0.8 electron volt, the penetration depth is actually increasing in the sense the lower frequencies, the penetration length actually is increase, that means is high. And if you are going to increase the input frequency, the penetration depth is actually reducing, and is finally is going to be confined. So it's actually matched with the condition of the propagation length. So if it's propagating long, there is a chance of penetrate the that means skin depth of the material is actually very high at the initial or the input, and that means the initial point or the point at which actually where the surface plasmons are generated. But if you are going to increase the input frequency, it's become it's shrink to a surface, and it's become very highly focused or highly localized on the surface. So again, this also is monitored with respect to the different dielectrics, and we can notice that a same effects compared to the propagation lengths. So from these few property analysis, we can understand that graphene supports surface plasmons, and the chemical doping also will alter the surface plasmon effect on the graphene. The dielectrics materials also will affect the effect of surface plasmons. So based on this understanding, we try to made a study on how actually the surface plasmons are propagated from one end of the graphene sheets to the other end of the graphene sheets. And we assume that the length of the graphene is actually 1 micron long, and it's actually sandwiched between a air dielectrics. That means we consider as a freestanding graphene. So the schematic looks like the upper and lower medium we assumes to be a graphene, and the center, the 1 nanometer thick actually graphene or single layer of graphene we are assumed, and one edge of the graphene is actually excited with the transmits magnetic electric field. It's a varying input frequencies are actually we are applied, and we are varied the chemical potentials, and we notice that at the case of a 0.2 electron volt at lower input frequencies, we are achieving a long frequency of, that means a high frequency, a low frequency of the waves are actually propagating. If you are going to increase the frequency from 27 terahertz to a 72 terahertz, actually we are achieving a high frequency propagations, and we can notice that the penetration of the electromagnetic field through the dielectrics actually shrink and is going to confine on the substrate. And actually these results are actually well matched with the previous excitation frequency range, means 0.2 electron volt we are able to get a plasmonics from around 0.8 terahertz to around below 80 terahertz. So at 27 terahertz and 72 terahertz, we can find a noticeable in a propagation of surface plasmon through the material, and this actually having a high penetration depth, and this having a low penetration depth when we are increase the input frequency. So good confinements we are achieved at high frequency. And the same experiments, we studied how much amount of power actually generated on the other sides. And that also we noticed that if we are going to increase the chemical potentials at a higher input frequency, we are achieving a high power propagating up to the 1 micron long compared to a lower chemical potentials, which is happen at the lower input frequencies. So for study the plasmonics effects on a flexible graphene, we made a systematic analysis on a 1 micrometer graphene in such a way that on what frequency, on what chemical potential we achieve the maximum electromagnetic field on a 1 micron long graphenes, and we varied the graphene chemical potential from 0.2 electron volt to 1 electron volt by varying the input frequency from 0.1 terahertz to 200 terahertz, and corresponding the Emax in the sense the modulus of X and Y component of electric field, because we are excited with a TM polarized input source, we monitored on the other side. So we kept a one monitor at the input side, and we kept another monitor at the output side, and we monitor the difference or the energies which is actually generated from the input as well as propagated at the other end. And we monitor the Emax as well as the magnetic field components, and we noticed that as the chemical potential of the graphene is increased from 0.2 electron volt to 1 electron volt, there is a drastic enhancement on the Emax as well as the magnetic component, that means Z component of the magnetic field. This same effects we noticed with respect to the length of the graphene. So we varied the graphene length from 1 micrometer to 10 micrometer with the steps of 5. So we noticed that as the length of the graphene is increased from 1 micrometer to 10 micrometer, there is a reduction in the maximum electric field and magnetic fields generated at the graphene opposite side. But on a highly doped graphene, the 1 electron volt of doped graphene, the effect is actually drastic, very huge. That means the effect of reduction is very high in the case of 1 to 5 micrometer, but actually the reduction from 5 to 10 is not that much noticeable. But we can see that that means the energy which is generated even at say 10 micrometer is equal to 4 into 10 raised to 7 volt per meter. So that means it's actually is enough to make a practical product. The literature survey shows the graphene propagation through, that means the plasmons propagation through a graphene is depends upon the type of dielectric we are using, the bending we are actually produced on, that means the radius of bending which are produced on the graphene materials, and the input excitation frequency what we are actually provide to the material. So it depends upon the frequency, there is a chance that the mode of excitement and the confinement of plasmons which can be varied in the graphene. So understand that we made a systematic analysis on the graphene which is actually bended around 180 degree of angle, This case, initially we considered the graphene as sandwiched on air, and it's a 1 micron long and bended with a radius, that means a 180 degree with a radius of 202.5 nanometer. So here we excite one edge of this bended graphene. We are excited with a transverse magnetic input electromagnetic source, and we notice that the electric field as well as magnetic field is actually propagating from the inputs to the other end on a specific frequency of excitement, and we can see that at maximum of its excitement, there will not be too much of reduction of the electromagnetic field, which is actually excited from the other end to the opposite end. So now, for understanding this reduction, suppose there is any reduction happen if we are going to bend the graphene. So we made a systematic analysis in such a way that the graphene is actually bended from 0 degree to 180 degree on different chemical potentials, and we noticed that there is no significant reduction of the electromagnetic field as well as magnetic field actually is received at the other end of the bended graphene. So this table actually explains the attenuation and propagation laws actually we monitored or we calculated on a different chemical potentials. So it's indicate that at higher chemical potentials, the attenuation loss actually is very, very less. That means 0.0054 dB, and the propagation loss will be 0.0626%, and the skin depth, that means the penetration of the surface plasmons through the dielectrics also is actually reduced. In the case of low chemical potentials, the penetration depth was around or above 50 nanometer, but once it's actually that means chemical potentials increased to 1 electron volt, the penetration depth also actually reduced to approximately 7 nanometer. And in the case of 180 degree, we can see that there is a small increment in the attenuation of the electromagnetic field from 0.0054 dB to a 0.0201 dB, but there is no difference in the skin depth. That means there is a small reductions, but that is actually a reasonable reduction when actually we are bending a graphene from a straight graphene to a 180 degree of graphene on a highly doped graphenes. So this effect actually we studied on a polymer material of PMMA on focusing towards the fabrication of some flexible devices, and we noticed that the comparative studies show that in the case of PMMA, once we are going to vary the dielectrics, since the dielectric value of the PMMA is actually greater than the air, there is a small reduction in the maximum electric field which is generated at the opposite sides with respect to air. But if you are going to look at the bending studies, and in that case also we cannot find any significant difference in the Emax value with respect to a flat graphene and 180 degree bended graphene. The systematic analysis shows the propagation loss on a graphene with air and propagation loss on a graphene with a PMMA at 180 degrees. We can see that means without bend and with bend is assumed to be a 180 degree, and see that without bend the propagation loss was 0.6 percentage, and with bend it was actually 0.2 percentage. But if you are going to consider the PMMA, the propagation loss was without bend was 0.05 percentage, and it's with a bend on a PMMA it's a 0.6 percentage. And skin depth of this air and PMMA shows that in the air there is no difference in the skin depth, but in the case of PMMA there is a small increment in the skin depth. That means there is a small or a little amount of losses happen on the graphene plasmonics, which is used or which is attached on a dielectric material. Okay. Apart from these things, we notice that there are a lot of applications actually so far reported with graphene plasmonics. If you are going to use the graphene on a dielectrics, we can make it graphene as a waveguide. And in this paper, the authors are reported in such a way that graphenes support the surface plasmons, and that actually depends upon the dielectric material. That means they're actually varied that means a single layer of graphene is actually kept on a dielectric material, and they varied the dielectric value from 0.25 to a 30, that means 35, and they monitor the propagation length and lateral decay length, that means a penetration depth, and they notice that the propagation length and the decay length will be high in the case of a low dielectric material. But if you are going to increase the dielectric material, the propagation length will be reduced, as well as the lateral decay also will be reduced. That means dielectric values we are going to increase, in the sense there is a chance to get a more and more confined, that means confined plasmons effects. If you want to make it like a propagating waves, you have to make a low dielectric value. We have to make it like, say, very focused energy source, means we have to make a high dielectrics mediums. So this effect actually they're talking like that's the LIF material actually they're studied. That means the transition optics frequency of this lithium fluoride material is actually 2.22 terahertz. So if you are going to excite the graphene with the input energy lesser than this transition optics, there is a chance of propagate the surface plasmon for a longer distance with a high confinement. But if you are going to excite the input force energy is actually greater than the transition optics value of the dielectric medium, then the surface plasmon will not achieve a proper confinement, and it cannot propagate for a longer distance. So this work actually they're talking, we can make a waveguides on a graphene in plasmonics, but we have to choose the dielectric medium in such a way that for a longer propagations, we have to prefer a medium which having a high frequency of transition optics. And if you want to make a localized one, we can use the material which is having a low transition, or otherwise you have to use the input frequencies which will be lesser than the transmission optics. And according to that, we have to control the chemical potential of the graphene, because we already noticed that graphene chemical potential also will vary the range of surface plasmon effects. Other applications, we noticed that actually the graphene based terahertz antennas, which is also working in the range of gigahertz to a terahertz, and people are actually working on micro patch antenna because it's widely used for the mobile devices. So graphene based micro patch antennas can be make a good gain and directivity of radiation efficiency. So there are flexible graphene based antennas also is reported in such a way that they used a multi-layer graphene sandwiched on a cellulose paper, and they've designed a micro patch antenna, and they noticed that this multi-layer graphene is making a better, that means a high-speed operation or a better frequencies compared to a copper-based micro patch antenna. And since it's actually a flexible, and they made a that means two directional bending on this micro patch antenna, that means flexible micro patch antenna, and they studied actually the effect of frequencies with respect to stretch, and they compared that with a polymer material of P, that means they made it on a polymer, this graphene antennas they made it on a polymer material of PET as well as a cellulose material, and they studied and the stretching effects, and correspondingly the effect of frequency shift on the antenna operations they noticed. And they're already actually compared the sensitivity of this antenna for the sensing applications with respect to a copper, and they noticed that the sensitivity of the graphene flexible antenna is actually higher than a copper based, a copper thin film based antennas. So micropatch antennas actually, there are three different types are there. One is actually, this classification is actually based on the feed line which we are used to excite or provide the input signals. So these are actually micro strip line feed antenna, aperture coupled field antenna, and a proximity coupled field antenna. Out of this, actually the proximity coupled antenna having a largest bandwidth, as well as it will produce very low spurious radiations. But in a normal conventional manufacturing or conventional applications, people are widely used this microstrip antenna because of its ease of fabrications. Or otherwise, I can tell you the proximity coupled antenna is very difficult to fabricate, and due to that, people are actually not widely used. So on that point of view, we made a trial on a designing a proximity coupled micropatch antenna using graphene, because graphene is a monolayer material, and we can easily transfer the graphene from copper sheets to a silicon substrate or any flexible substrate to a PMMA substrate. There are a lot of techniques that actually is developed. And there are a lot of patented techniques like laser cutting, or maybe a anodic oxidation techniques using scanning probe microscope. There are a lot of new techniques that actually originated for the designing of the graphene's patterns. So with that knowledge, we try to design a proximity coupled micropatch antenna, and we designed the parameters of this antenna, this thing, and made a computational studies, and we noticed that the width and length of this patch antenna, which is working in terahertz range on a PMMA material, will be in the range of below 50 micron in dimensions. And this antenna also will produce a good VSSR value. That means the reflection coefficient value, which will describe the amount of power will be reflected from the antenna, as well as the retained loss actually is talking about the power density coupled from the transmission line to antenna. And these two results actually showing that this proximity coupled graphene based micropatch antenna can be worked as a multi-band antenna, which can be worked approximately a range of 11 terahertz or 13 terahertz, as well as a 15 terahertz. So we can operate in a 3 different range of frequencies if we are going to tune it in the design of this micropatch antenna. So this computational studies, we varied the chemical potential of the graphene in such a way that it's again 0.2 electron volt to a 0.6 electron volt, and we applied the frequency in such a way that which will be provide the maximum this thing, and we noticed that the S11 value, VSWR value, and directivity, and it's all satisfying the a good antenna operations. So apart this, people are used graphene patterned flexible devices for detecting or as a sensor for the RF IDs. That means the RF antennas can be designed in such a way that using some laser ablation techniques or mechanical cutting, or with the anodic oxidation techniques for cutting the graphene, and we can design a device such a way that, and we can use it as a ID card for, or ID or log, or that means a code for, or it's similar to a barcode, which is actually used for the barcode analysis. We can use it as a RF ID card with the help of a flexible graphene RF devices. So from this computationalist as well as this literature analysis, I'm just giving an idea about the graphene can be used as a future flexible devices because the conductivity of the graphenes actually is varied, or is actually is very we can be tuned, depends upon its chemical potentials. And another important beauty of this graphene is actually graphene will support TM as well as TE polarized input source in the case of other commercial or other plasmonics materials like silver, gold, copper, aluminum. They will support only a TM mode of electromagnetic radiations. Then the permittivity or the dielectric property of the graphene also is actually depends upon the chemical potentials as well as the input excitation frequency. SPP generation frequencies range we can be changed with respect to the chemical potentials. So change in dielectric constants also vary the plasmonics property of the graphene. That means on which material we are actually kept, or we are going to place the graphene. That also is deals the plasmonics property of the graphene. Frequency at which maximum electric field and magnetic field is actually propagating can be also varied, or can be also tuned with the chemical potential of the graphene. The graphene can be that is sandwiched on a different dielectrics, especially the studies which we are done in our lab on a PMMA materials showing like that it's making a very less propagation losses or bending losses. Highly doped graphene shows a good confinement on a phase standing as well as a dielectric sandwiched graphene. And there are lot of reports are there. Graphene plasmonics based waveguides, antennas, RFIDs, sensors, couplets can be made it, and tuning chemical potential of the graphene, the property of the graphene device can be modified. With this knowledge, I'm giving a proposal, that means I'm suggesting graphene is a good material for the future flexible. These are the major references I used for this presentations. I have to give thanks to my professor or my supervisor, Dr. Gargi Reina. She is a professor from AD Chennai campus, and Dr. Nirmala Grace, my center director, and my colleagues and my students who are working with me in Center for Nanotechnology Research, and DAT management for giving the opportunity for doing this research. And finally, I thank my team as well as the organizers of this webinar for giving an opportunity for presenting my work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor George Jacob. This is definitely very informative and very comprehensive, and definitely an educational session about graphene and all its applications and the work that is taking place in your lab with your advisor and Dr. Nirmala Grace and the entire team. And especially it's good to know about all the opportunities for application and flexible optoelectronics. So thank you again on behalf of VIT and Binghamton University for participating and for sharing with us all this information and knowledge. And at this point, we can open it up for questions from any of our participants today. I saw there's one question in the chat. Yassine, would you like to ask your question out loud? Yassine, yeah. So Yassine, I think, was asking about how do we measure the wavelength of PS? There was one question in the chat. I think it was early on in the presentation when you were explaining. But his question is, how do you measure the wavelength of PS?
Yeah, in the case of measuring the wavelength of the plasmonics, that means propagating surface plasmons, from the electromagnetic radiations, we can find out. Actually, I can share the screen. I can explain that. Yeah, if you are going to produce a electromagnetic radiation like this, actually the one wavelength is associated with, that means from center of this blue to center of the red is actually associated with the one wave. So from this spectrum, we can find out the wavelength of this propagating wave on that particular frequency. So if you are we already, we are exciting with a one particular frequency of or particular wavelength of input source, and the output source, that means we can just measure it like the wavelengths from this the crust and rest of this electromagnetic radiations, and this wave actually, that is, this frequency is actually much higher than the input frequency. So that way we can easily find it. So this from the computation studies we can do that, or otherwise if you have any kind of instruments like even actually if you are going to use a scanning probe microscope also, we can get the wave patterns of the electromagnetic radiations can be, that means the plasmons can be studied with a scanning probe microscope, especially with the atomic force microscope. There are one Nature paper is published in 2013 actually clearly explain about how actually the plasmons are actually studied through a scanning probe microscope, or otherwise we can just study it like even the Raman spectroscopy we can use that, or photoluminescence techniques we can use that if you are using if you are working on a practical work. Computational work easily we can just do for the patterns of electromagnetic radiation here.
Thank you very much, Professor, for providing the detailed answer. Any other questions from our colleagues at Binghamton University or at VIT? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, Dr. Sam. Gurvinder here.
Yes, Gurvinder. Yes, please go ahead.
Thanks, Dr. George, for the presentation. I have just one question about the stability, the addition properties of the graphene for the RF applications. So, what do you think? Like with all these flexible applications, we are proposing for the graphene for the very high, like that terahertz frequencies. Addition is very important, right? So with that addition, we are doing all the flexibility bending and in tensiling, and also like on the board direction. So what do you think, like how that addition, how good is the addition is to the substrate, plus how that will affect with the different type of fabrication techniques?
Yeah, fabrication techniques actually, if you are going to use a polymer materials, actually we can just go for some kind of solder techniques for making a thin film coating, and we can just transfer the materials to the polymer. We prefer actually PMMA just for because we already practice, we already done some work based on a PMMA based polymer for transferring the graphene from copper substrate, which is actually manufactured using a chemical vapor depositions. So it's actually non-techniques, and due to that, for transferring the graphene from a copper to PMMA is very easy techniques. So due to that only we are actually preferred PMMA, and also PMMA is a well-known material and the properties are actually well understood. So definitely we need some kind of support for doing the support dielectrics. We have to do it. So towards the flexible, we definitely have to use the PMMA or kind of a polymer material. Then for making a patterning, actually we already experienced with the anodic oxidation techniques, which is one of the advanced techniques of scanning, that means scanning probe microscope. There we just apply a voltage and we can make a oxidize the graphene, and we can make a nice cutting. That means that we can make a shape of particular shape with this anodic oxidation technique. So due to that, we are able to, we can make a design, or we can make a particular shape for design the device.
Yeah. So what type of additions we get with this type, like with this type of technique? Also, like if we want to use something more flexible, like a PET substrate, right? So in we have very low contact time, like that. Especially PET has a very low addition to the to some materials. So the question, like we are thinking, like how the addition we can increase the addition, or what type of addition you are getting for with the PMA. You said that you are getting a good addition, but with all other substrates which have a very low energy, surface energy, with that, how we can achieve that high addition?
Yeah, actually, and we have to practice on that, because we didn't optimize that, because we already tried with this OHP sheet. Actually, that's the plastic sheet actually which we tried, and we also noticed that actually the adhesion of this graphene on the substrate was actually very weak. So we have to optimize. We didn't work on that too much, and we also actually expecting a lot of hurdles for optimize that. But because of that, we prefer PMMA, which is actually already we done, or we are already done some work on the PMMA. That's why we prefer the PMMA for us, that means polymer material.
Thank you.
Yeah, that definitely we have to optimize a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
That
Because
very, very important. Adhesion is very important because the plasmonic effects are going to happen at the interface between the negative dielectrics as well as positive dielectrics. So there will be a gap. Definitely there will be air in a medium there. So
that is another dielectric.
Yeah. So then another dielectric will create, and that definitely that will affect the plasmonic property.
Yes. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I didn't work on other material. That's why I cannot complete your answer. That means you cannot answer fully.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gurvinder and Professor George. Any other questions? We still have time, so please don't hesitate to ask. Let me check if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. Again, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Okay. So if there are no questions, I would like to again, on behalf of Binghamton University and VIT, thank Professor George Jacob for the nice presentation. There is definitely a lot of synergy. Gurvinder that asked the question works with Dr. Pollux in the Center for Advanced Microelectronics Manufacturing in the area of flexible electronics. So we can see a lot of synergy between the two groups and the Center for Nano Research under Dr. Nirmala Grace's leadership. So we definitely look forward to possible collaboration in the future so that we can have our faculty and students collaborate even more on this topic. So again, Professor George, thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
And before we conclude, I just want to share with you the information about the next presentation. If you can see my screen, you see that next week's presentation will be by Professor Guangwen Zhao, who is a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, and he's also part of the Material Science and Engineering program at Binghamton University. So Dr. Zhao will be talking about his research. So you're welcome to join us next week. So the presentation will be next Thursday, November 19th, again, 8:30 a.m. US Eastern Time and 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So please feel free to share this topic with your colleagues, friends, students, and other scholars and encourage them to attend. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Later today, I will be sending a recording of Professor George's presentation, and I will also send the formal announcement with the detailed abstract regarding next week's presentation. And before we conclude, I would like to wish our colleagues in India a very happy Diwali in advance. So as many of you know, our friends here and students and colleagues in the US, Diwali will be celebrated by more than 1 billion people starting later this week. And it's the Festival of Lights. So on behalf of Binghamton University, I would like to wish our colleagues and friends in India and at VIT in particular a very happy and safe and healthy Diwali.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Samanga. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Jason, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
See you next week, Mohammed.
Yes, we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah.
much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and enjoy the
Very
rest
nice.
of the day for our colleagues here in the US. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bruno, bye.
Bye, Nirmala.